The inheritance. The problem with receiving an inheritance from an ex is that it's never just a gift, it's a statement. If they leave you jewelry, it's to remind you of what could have been. If they leave you property, it's to show you what you'll never have with someone else. And if they leave you a spaceship, one that just happens to be the fastest vessel in the known universe, it's probably because they were secretly the emperor of an intergalactic civilization and conveniently forgot to mention it. Which explains why I, Juno Reeves, former barista and current most wanted fugitive in 12-star systems, was hanging upside down in an engine compartment, desperately trying to reconnect a power coupling while alarms blared throughout the ship. Juno. Ilix shouted over the comm, "We've got company. 3 Imperial cruisers just dropped out of hyperspace." I swore, banging my head against a conduit. "Can't you handle it? I'm a little busy preventing us from exploding." "They're hailing us. Authorization codes from the 9th Fleet. They're not here to chat." I reconnected the final wire, watching with relief as the engine compartment's warning lights shifted from angry red to a more pleasant amber. Not perfect, but it would have to do. "Tell them we're experiencing technical difficulties," I grunted, pulling myself up through the maintenance shaft. "I already did." They responded with target locks. Of course they did. I emerged onto the bridge, wiping engine grease from my hands onto my already filthy jumpsuit. The ship, my ship, according to the bizarrely formal holographic will Nix had left me, was called the Starborn Eclipse. It was sleek, black, and according to the manual, which was, infuriatingly, only partially translated to English, capable of outrunning anything in the known galaxy. We were about to test that claim. Ilix stood at the navigation console, their 4 arms moving rapidly across the controls. They were Quatsarian, with iridescent scaled skin and enormous eyes that reflected the starfield outside. I'd met them in a spaceport dive bar 3 days after receiving the ship, right around the time I realized half the galaxy was trying to kill me. They'd offered to help pilot the vessel in exchange for passage off-world, and I'd been desperate enough to accept. "Can we jump?" I asked, sliding into the captain's chair. "Not until the quantum drive stabilizes. 10 minutes, maybe less." The view screen showed 3 massive Imperial warships, their sleek, predatory shapes unmistakable even to my untrained eye. They were positioning themselves to block our escape vectors. "We don't have 10 minutes, I said. "No," Ilix agreed. "We do not." The comm crackled. "Unidentified vessel," a voice speaking oddly accented English declared, "you are in possession of stolen Imperial property. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will be met with lethal force." I muted the channel and turned to Ilix. "Options?" "We could surrender," they suggested, though their tone made clear what they thought of that idea. "Pass." "What else?" Ilix's secondary hands continued working the navigational systems while their primary pair gestured toward a small asteroid field at the edge of our sensor range. "We could try to lose them in there. The Eclipse is more maneuverable than those behemoths. They just wait for us to come out." I frowned, studying the tactical display. "What about?" The ship rocked violently as a warning shot passed across our bow, close enough to disrupt our shields. "Next time, they won't miss," Ilix warned. I closed my eyes, thinking of Nix. Tall, elegant Nix with his strange, shifting eyes and midnight blue skin. Nix who had shared my bed for 6 months before disappearing without explanation, leaving nothing but a cryptic note promising he'd return. Then, a year later, the notification that he was dead and had left me his most prized possession, a ship I wasn't qualified to fly. "There's one more option," I said slowly. "The manual mentioned something called a phantom drive." Ilix's eyes widened. "The phase shift phantom drive is theoretical technology. No one's ever successfully built one." I gestured around the bridge. "This ship isn't exactly standard issue, Ilix. Even if it exists, using untested drive technology could tear us apart at the atomic level. Another shot rocked the ship, this one impacting our shields directly. Warning lights flashed across the control panels. Shields at 40%, the ship's AI announced in its oddly melodious voice. It had introduced itself as Vela when I first boarded, and seemed to have a disconcertingly dry sense of humor for an artificial intelligence. Vela, I called out, does this ship have a functioning phantom drive? Affirmative, Captain Reeves. The phase shift phantom drive is operational, though use is recommended only in emergency scenarios. I'd say 3 Imperial warships qualifies as an emergency, I muttered. How do we activate it? Drive activation requires Captain's authorization and a destination input. Illich stared at me. Juno, this is insane. We don't know where it will take us. We know exactly where those cruisers will take us, I countered. To an Imperial detention center, at best. More likely a quick execution for stealing the Emperor's personal ship. I did not steal anything, I added indignantly. Nix gave it to me. Legally. The Empire clearly disagrees, Illich said, gesturing to the warships that were now moving to surround us. Captain, Vela interrupted, I must inform you that Imperial forces are preparing to deploy tractor beams. We have approximately 60 seconds before capture becomes inevitable. I took a deep breath. Vela, activate the Phantom Drive. Destination. I hesitated, then remembered something Nix had once mentioned during one of our late-night conversations. Set course for the Rift Sanctuary. Illich made a choking sound. The Rift is a lawless border zone. It's full of pirates and exiles. Exactly. No one's going to look for an Imperial ship there. I strapped myself into the captain's chair. Everyone, brace for whatever happens with a Phantom Drive. Phantom Drive engaging in 5, Vela announced calmly. 4. 3. 2. 1. The universe outside the viewscreen seemed to fold in on itself. Stars stretched and warped, colors bleeding into one another in ways that hurt my eyes and made my stomach lurch. Then darkness, absolute, perfect darkness, followed by a sensation of falling through infinite space. I might have screamed. I'm not entirely sure. The next thing I knew, the normal starfield had returned, though the pattern was completely unfamiliar. Location confirmed, Vela announced. We have arrived at the Rift Sanctuary, Outer Rim coordinates 357-942-116. No Imperial presence detected within sensor range. I released my white-knuckled grip on the chair's armrests. Illich? You still with me? A weak groan came from the navigation console. Unfortunately. Vela, damage report. Minor structural stress to the outer hull. Power systems functioning at 83% efficiency. Quantum drive offline and requiring recalibration. No critical damage detected. I exhaled slowly. We'd made it. We were alive and free, at least for now. But the questions that had been plaguing me since I received the ship still remained. Why had Nix left me his most valuable possession? Why was the Empire so desperate to get it back? And most importantly, what had Nix been hiding from me during our time together? Captain, Vela said, interrupting my thoughts, I am now authorized to deliver the second part of Lord Nix Valiner's final message. I sat up straighter. What? There's more. The first part was the legal transfer of ownership. The second part was keyed to activate only after the Phantom Drive was used. Well, let's hear it, I said. A hologram materialized in the center of the bridge. Nix, just as I remembered him, tall and elegant with those strange, shifting eyes. But now he was dressed in elaborate regalia I'd never seen before, adorned with symbols and insignia that spoke of authority and power. Juno, the hologram said, with the same rich voice that had once whispered in my ear. If you're seeing this message, then 2 things have happened, I am dead, and you have been forced to use the phantom drive to escape Imperial forces. I glanced at Ilix, who looked as stunned as I felt. I owe you an explanation, Nyx continued. The truth I never told you is that was, Nyx Valiner, Emperor of the Astral Dominion. The man you knew was real, but my identity was not. I came to Earth seeking escape from the suffocating politics of the Imperial Court, and I found it with you. The hologram paused, and for a moment I could almost believe he was really there, looking at me with regret. I had planned to return, to tell you everything, but my enemies moved faster than I anticipated. I cannot apologize enough for the danger I've placed you in, but I can offer you protection. The Starborn Eclipse is more than just a ship, it's a key to the Empire itself. In Imperial law, the bearer of the Emperor's personal vessel has claimed to Imperial authority in the absence of a named successor. I felt the blood drain from my face. What? This means, Juno Reeves, that you are now technically entitled to the astral throne. The eclipse contains all the verification codes and legal documents to support this claim. Of course, the Imperial Council will stop at nothing to prevent you from exercising this right, which is why they are hunting you. The hologram smiled sadly. I don't expect you to want this burden. I certainly never did. But I trusted you more than anyone in the 12 systems, and I couldn't leave the Empire to those vultures on the Council. Whatever you choose to do with this power, claim it, reject it, use it as leverage, the choice is yours. Nyx's image flickered, as if he had more to say, then steadied. There is one person you can trust, Talia Vex, my former spymaster. She operates an independent intelligence brokerage in the Rift. Find her, show her the Imperial seal in the captain's quarters, and she'll help you navigate what comes next. I am truly sorry, Juno. For everything. The man you knew, that was the real me, more than the Emperor ever was. His image began to fade. I hope someday you can forgive me. The hologram disappeared, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. You, Ilix said finally, dated the Emperor of the Astral Dominion. Apparently, I replied weakly. And now you're his legal successor. So it seems. And the entire Imperial fleet is hunting us. I groaned, slumping in my chair. I knew there was a reason he was so mysterious about his job. Ilix made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. What now, Your Majesty? I stared out at the unfamiliar stars, thinking about Nyx's final message. I had no interest in becoming an empress or ruling anything larger than my former apartment. But I did have an interest in staying alive and perhaps, just perhaps, in finding out who had killed the only man I'd ever truly loved. Now, I said, straightening up in the captain's chair, we find this Talia Vex. And then we figure out how to use this mess to our advantage. Outside the view screen, the stars of the Rift Sanctuary glittered like scattered diamonds against the void. Somewhere among them was a woman who might have answers. And beyond that, an empire that wanted me either dead or on a throne I never asked for. Vela, I said, set course for the nearest populated system. We need information, supplies, and probably a very strong drink. Course plotted, Captain, the AI replied. Estimated arrival, 3 hours at standard speed. I nodded, trying to project a confidence I didn't feel. Let's go. As the starborn eclipse glided forward into the unknown, I couldn't help but think that breakups were complicated enough without adding interstellar politics to the mix. The hunt. The Rift Sanctuary lived up to its reputation. A lawless frontier at the edge of civilized space, it was a patchwork of ramshackle space stations, mining outposts, and makeshift colonies clinging to inhospitable asteroids and moons. The kind of place where questions weren't asked, credit spoke louder than laws, and everyone was running from something. In other words, the perfect hiding spot for a woman who'd accidentally inherited an empire. We docked the starborn eclipse at a station called Nexus Point, though I'd insisted on using the ship's camouflage systems to disguise it as a standard cargo freighter. The fewer people who knew we had an Imperial vessel, the better. This place smells like desperation and engine grease, I muttered as we made our way through the crowded main concourse. The station was a chaotic blend of dozens of species, merchants hawking questionable goods, and the constant background noise of ships coming and going. That's the smell of freedom, Ilix replied, their 4 arms moving in what I'd come to recognize as an expression of excitement. No imperial presence, no corporate oversight. Also no safety regulations, I noted, stepping over a sparking power conduit. How do we find Talia Vex in this mess? Information brokers don't advertise, Ilix said. But they always have connections to the local underworld. We start at a bar. The establishment we found ourselves in was called the Void's Edge. It was dimly lit, crowded with an assortment of beings who looked like they'd kill you for looking at them wrong, and served drinks that were probably illegal in most civilized systems. I'll ask around, Ilix said. You stay here and try not to make eye contact with anyone. As they disappeared into the crowd, I nursed a drink that tasted like liquid metal and burned all the way down. 3 days on the run, and I was still struggling to process everything. A week ago, my biggest concern had been making rent on my apartment. Now I was hiding in a lawless space frontier with a target on my back. You look lost, a voice said. I turned to find a woman sliding onto the stool beside mine. She was human, or appeared to be, with dark skin, silver hair cropped close to her scalp, and eyes that seemed to change color in the bar's shifting lights. Something about her presence commanded attention, though she was dressed simply in a well-worn flight suit. Just passing through, I replied cautiously. No one's just passing through the rift, she said, signaling the bartender for a drink. Everyone here is running to something or from something. Usually both. I studied her. There was something familiar about her face, though I couldn't place it. Which are you? She smiled, and it wasn't a particularly friendly expression. I'm the rare 3rd category, I live here. Her drink arrived, something clear that steamed slightly, and she took a sip without breaking eye contact. You arrived 6 hours ago on a ship that's trying very hard to look like a standard Corellian freighter, she continued. Except anyone who knows ships can see the energy signature is all wrong. Too powerful. Too refined. My hand drifted toward the small blaster hidden under my jacket. You've been watching me. I watch everyone who might be interesting. She extended a hand. Talia Vex. I froze, my fingers still brushing the concealed weapon. That was surprisingly easy. Was it? Her eyes, now definitely more amber than they had been moments ago, glinted with amusement. Your Quatsarian friend has been asking about me for the past 20 minutes, drawing significant attention. Not exactly subtle. As if summoned, Ilix materialized beside us, all 4 arms raised in a defensive posture when they spotted Talia. Stand down, I murmured. Apparently she found us. Actually, Talia said, I've been tracking the eclipse since you entered the system. Nyx installed certain backdoors that allow me to monitor its movements. That's not concerning at all, I muttered. The Empire has similar capabilities, she replied. Which is why we should continue this conversation somewhere more private. She stood, leaving her drink untouched. Follow me. Try to look casual. We followed her through the winding corridors of the station, eventually arriving at what appeared to be an ordinary storage unit. She placed her palm against the door, which scanned her handprint before sliding open. Inside was definitely not storage. The space was a high-tech intelligence hub, with holographic displays, multiple workstations, and what looked suspiciously like military-grade surveillance equipment. Welcome to my office, Talia said as the door sealed behind us. Now, Juno Reeves, let's discuss why you have Nyx Valina's ship and what you plan to do with it. I crossed my arms. First, tell me how you knew my name. I never introduced myself. She gave me a look that made me feel like a child asking why water was wet. I was Imperial Spymaster for 15 years. I know everything about everyone Nyx ever cared about. Something in her tone caught my attention. You and Nyx were close. A shadow passed across her face. We were many things to each other over the years. Friends. Rivals. Occasional lovers. Ultimately, allies. She gestured toward a seating area. Please, sit. I suspect you have questions. That was an understatement. As we settled into the surprisingly comfortable chairs, I tried to decide where to begin. Nyx's message said you could help me. He also said I'm somehow entitled to the Imperial throne. Talia's expression tightened. Entitled, yes. But that's a far cry from actually claiming it and surviving. I don't want to claim anything, I said firmly. I just want to stop being hunted. Those two things are unfortunately linked. Talia activated a holographic display, bringing up an image of an elaborate governmental structure. The Astral Dominion operates under the Celestial Compact, essentially its constitution. According to its laws, the Emperor's personal vessel, the Starborn Eclipse, serves as both a symbol of authority and a legal instrument of succession in the absence of a named heir. So the ship is basically a crown, Illich said. A crude simplification, but essentially correct, Talia replied. By giving you the eclipse, Nyx effectively named you as his successor. I shook my head. But why? We dated for 6 months. We weren't even together when he died. Talia's gaze softened slightly. Nyx saw something in you. He was an excellent judge of character, it's what made him a better emperor than most. She sighed. But more practically, he was playing a very dangerous political game. She manipulated the hologram, highlighting 12 figures arranged in a circle. The Imperial Council. Technically advisors to the Emperor, but in practice, they've been steadily accumulating power for decades. Nyx was working to curb their influence when he was killed. Killed? I leaned forward. His message said he died, but not how. Officially, a malfunction in his personal shuttle, Talia said grimly. Unofficially, well, let's just say the timing was convenient for certain council members. They assassinated him, I said, the words feeling hollow in my mouth. Almost certainly. But proving it is another matter. Talia studied me. By leaving you the eclipse, Nyx created a constitutional crisis. The council can't simply seize power, that would violate the compact and potentially trigger civil war. But they also can't allow an outsider, especially a human from a pre-contact world, to take the throne. So they're trying to kill me too, I concluded. Yes. Though they'd prefer to capture you and the ship. That would allow them to control the narrative. She leaned back. There's also a more immediate threat. The Empire employs specialized agents for situations like this, the Imperial Shadows. Illich made a distressed chittering sound. Assassins. More than assassins, Talia corrected. Elite operatives with advanced technology and near unlimited authority. If the Council has deployed one, and I'm certain they have, it's only a matter of time before they track you here. As if on cue, an alarm blared from one of Talia's consoles. She moved with surprising speed, checking the display. An Imperial scout ship just entered the system, she announced. Traveling under merchant codes, but the energy signature is military. My stomach dropped. How did they find us so quickly? The phantom drive is distinctive. They likely detected the energy signature when you arrived. Talia grabbed a data pad and began downloading information. We need to move. Now. Back to the eclipse? I asked, already standing. No. They'll be watching the docks. She tossed me the data pad. This contains everything you need to know about the Imperial succession laws and the Council. Study it. There's also coordinates for a safe house on Lyra 6. You're not coming with us. Ilix asked. Talia shook her head. I'll create a diversion. Draw them away from you. She moved to a wall panel, revealing a hidden weapons cache. She selected a sleek, nasty-looking rifle and several smaller devices I couldn't identify. There's a maintenance access tunnel that leads to the lower docking bay, she continued, tossing me a small device. This will get you through the security doors. Bay 14 has my personal ship, the Whisper. It's not as fast as the Eclipse, but it's unregistered and has top-of-the-line stealth systems. What about my ship? I protested. I'll secure it. The Eclipse has defensive protocols even the Empire can't override. She checked her weapon. The Council doesn't know about me yet. That gives us an advantage. A realization struck me. You were expecting this. You've been planning for it. Talia's expression was unreadable. Nix and I always had contingencies. This was one of them. She hesitated, then added, he wasn't just the Emperor to me, Juno. He was my friend. I intend to find out who killed him and make them pay. Another alarm sounded. They're scanning the station, Talia said. We're out of time. She handed me a small metallic cube. Take this too. It's a secure communication device. Once you're safely away, contact me. I pocketed it, still processing everything. Why are you helping me? Because Nix trusted you, she replied. And because right now, you're the only legal obstacle preventing the Council from taking complete control. She led us to a concealed door at the back of her office. The tunnel will take you directly to the lower levels. Don't stop for anything. I hesitated at the threshold. Talia, thank you. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Don't thank me yet. If we survive this, maybe. She nodded to Ilix. Keep her alive, Quatsarian. The fate of 12 systems might depend on it. With that cheerful thought, we plunged into the dimly lit maintenance tunnel, leaving Talia to her diversion, whatever that might entail. We made it to the lower docking bay without incident, though twice we had to hide from station security patrols that seemed to be on high alert. The Whisper lived up to its name, a sleek, matte black vessel that looked more like a shadow than a ship. Can you fly this thing? I asked Ilix as we slipped aboard. If it has controls, I can fly it, they replied, sliding into the pilot's seat. Though I'm detecting some unusual modifications. Knowing Talia, I'm not surprised, I said, taking the co-pilot position. Let's just hope they're the helpful kind of modifications. The ship powered up silently, unnervingly so. The control interface lit up with unfamiliar symbols that Ilix somehow seemed to understand. Stealth systems engaging, they murmured. Impressive. This vessel is practically invisible to standard sensors. We detached from the docking clamps and eased out of the bay, keeping our speed minimal to avoid drawing attention. Through the view screen, I could see the station's main concourse was in chaos, alarms flashing, security personnel rushing about. Talia's diversion, I assume, I said. Whatever she did, it's working, Ilix replied. All station defenses are focused inward. We cleared the station without challenge, but as we accelerated away, a large Imperial vessel appeared at the edge of our sensor range. Dreadnought class, Ilix reported tensely. Not just a scout ship. Can they detect us? Not yet. But once we hit hyperspace. The ship rocked violently, alarms blaring. On the tactical display, a smaller vessel had appeared seemingly from nowhere, firing precision shots at our engine section. How did they find us? I gasped, gripping the console as Ilix threw the ship into evasive maneuvers. That's not a normal Imperial ship, Ilix said, their voice tight. Signature matches a Shadow-class interceptor. Elite. Specialized. The Imperial Shadow. The assassin Talia had warned us about. Can we outrun it? I asked. Not with a damaged engine, Ilix replied. And we can't jump to hyperspace. The ship rocked again as another shot connected. Warning lights flashed across the controls. Options? I demanded. Ilix's 4 hands worked furiously across the panels. The Whisper has some defensive capabilities. Unconventional ones. Use them. They activated a sequence, and for a moment nothing seemed to happen. Then, abruptly, the attacking vessel disappeared from our sensors. What just happened? I asked. Quantum distortion field, Ilix explained, sounding impressed despite our situation. It doesn't harm them, but it completely disrupts their navigation and targeting systems. For how long? Minutes at most. We need to hide. They studied the star chart. There's an asteroid field near the system's edge. Dense enough to mask our signature if we power down. It was risky, but we had few options. Ilix piloted us into the field, navigating the tumbling rocks with impressive skill before finding a large asteroid with a deep crater. We settled into it, powering down all non-essential systems. Now we wait, Ilix said quietly. I nodded, trying to calm my racing heart. On the data pad Talia had given me, information about the Imperial Council glowed softly in the darkened cockpit. 12 faces, 12 names. One of them had likely ordered Nyx's death and was now hunting me. As I studied them, an idea began to form, a crazy, possibly suicidal idea. But if we were going to survive, we needed to do more than run. Ilix, I said slowly, what would happen if I actually tried to claim the throne? They stared at me. You can't be serious. I'm not saying I want to rule, I clarified. But according to these laws, I have a legal right that even the council can't simply ignore. What if, instead of running, we went straight to the imperial capital? They would arrest you immediately, Ilix protested. Not if we did it publicly, I countered. The compact requires a formal hearing for any succession claim. They can't just disappear me without violating their own laws. Laws mean little to those with power. But appearances mean everything, I argued, thinking of what Talia had said. The council maintains control through legitimacy. If they openly violate the compact, they risk civil war. Ilix was silent for a long moment. This is an extremely dangerous game you're proposing. More dangerous than being hunted across the galaxy? I asked. At least this way, we choose the battlefield. Before Ilix could respond, a proximity alert pulsed silently on the console. A ship was passing nearby, the Shadow's vessel, searching methodically through the asteroid field. We held our breath as it passed within kilometers of our hiding place, its sensors sweeping the area. After what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, it moved on, continuing its search in another sector. That was too close, Ilix whispered when it was finally gone. I nodded, my resolve hardening. We can't keep running forever. Sooner or later, they'll find us. I looked down at the data pad, at the faces of the council members who wanted me dead. We need to change the rules of engagement. How do we even get to the imperial capital without being shot down immediately? I thought of Talia's resources, of the information she'd provided. There might be a way. But first, we need to contact her. As Ilix cautiously brought the ship's communication systems back online, I couldn't help but think about Nyx. What had he seen in me that made him think I could handle this? I was no politician, no strategist. Just a woman who'd fallen for the wrong guy and inherited his problems. But perhaps that was the point. I was an outsider, unbound by the Empire's traditions and politics. Maybe that's exactly what Nyx had wanted, someone who would approach things differently. The communication device Talia had given me activated with a soft chime. Her voice came through, tense but alive. Tell me you're safe. For now, I replied. We're hiding in the asteroid field. The Shadow is still searching. Listen carefully, she said. The situation has escalated. The Council has publicly announced that terrorists have stolen the eclipse and assassinated the Emperor. They've declared martial law in the outer systems. My blood ran cold. They're framing me for Nyx's death. Yes. But this creates an opportunity. The public announcement means they have to follow protocol if you challenge it. A pause. Are you thinking what I think you're thinking? I want to go to the capital, I confirmed. Make my claim publicly. There was a long silence. It's incredibly risky, she finally said. But it might be our only play. Another pause. I've secured the eclipse. I can get it to you, but not here. There's a neutral trading post in the Kythera system. Meet me there in 2 days. What about the shadow? I'll handle it, she said with quiet confidence. Just focus on staying alive until then. And Juno, start studying those succession laws. If we're really doing this, you'll need to know them better than the Council does. The communication ended, leaving us in the dim cockpit. This is madness, Ilix said softly.